Welcome into the final Sports Hub Patriots Podcast training camp edition show of the year. I'm Alex Barth, joined by Matt Dolloff from 985thesportshub.com. Off the fields from the Patriots' 18th training camp practice of the summer. 18th and final, Dolloff. We made it. It's been a pleasure, sir, as always, to get to this finish line here.
Yeah, see you on the other side, Barth. See you on the other side in the regular season. Yeah, to be clear, this is just the final training camp one. We're going to do plenty of these pods.
Yes, the pod will be back.
Hopefully, right? God.
I would hope so. We're going to need to get a new graphic that says training camp edition on the bottom. But
yes.
For those who don't know that there's a graphic, there's a YouTube channel, Sports Hub YouTube channel. Go subscribe. It is the final official training camp podcast or training camp of the summer. So the way it works, they'll do a walkthrough tomorrow. It's closed to the media. They'll go to Tennessee. Final preseason game on Friday. They may practice Monday or Tuesday morning. Roster cuts are due Tuesday at 4 p.m. But that is generally not considered a part of training camp. That is generally considered week one prep. So this is kind of it for what we would in those practices as well. Part of the reason for that differentiation, they no longer have to open them to the media. So we'll go for stretching. We'll see who's there. That'll be it, like it is during the regular season. So for us, the analysis, the evaluation comes to an end today. And I will say, for what it's worth, today's practice, not a ton of evaluating to do, not a ton of analysis to do. It felt like they were doing a lot to get ready for week one. You pointed it out to me, Matt, that it felt like they were doing a lot of scout team stuff, starting to get ready for the Eagles. So there was big news I want to get to in a second in terms of who was there. I think that's the big story of the day, but not the most involved practice to close things out.
No, yeah, and without getting into details, it just seems like they're already starting to get ready for Jalen Hurts. At least the defense is getting ready for Jalen Hurts. I'm not sure what the offense is.
I don't know if the offense is going to get ready for Jalen Hurts.
No, I mean, it's hard to tell if they're getting ready for who's there. They still have Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, those guys up front like that. It's hard to tell what the offense is really getting ready for at this point, but I think clearly the defense is starting to get ready for week one, and so. Makes me wonder how much of the starters, if at all, we're going to see in this game against the Titans. But, yeah, it's good to see them sort of looking ahead, knowing they have a tough opponent and all that. But, it was interesting because it was a fully padded practice today. But, right before your final preseason game, your final open practice, you wouldn't expect a lot of hitting, I suppose. But you pointed out to me that, it's still good to, when you're working on certain things, especially up front on the lines, it's good to have full pads if you're going to be crashing into each other a little bit, not necessarily the most physical practice, but that was interesting to me. Yeah, a lot of light walkthrough stuff, especially on offense, and they did the usual 2-minute drill at the end and all that stuff. But yeah, very, very light, and it was sort of like the beginning of training camp, where the most interesting things is who's there and who isn't there and who's lining up where and all that stuff.
And of course, the who's there, you've probably seen it by now. Mike Onwenu activated off PUP. He was out there today. He only took part. He's in full pads, went through stretching, went through positional drills, fully, but didn't take part in team drills. Once those started, he went up to the conditioning field. We didn't see him again for the rest of the day. That tells me, though, that he's active, even though he was limited. You need to ramp up. I don't think anybody was under the impression that he was going to come back day one and be full go.
Right.
But the fact that he's out there, the fact that they've activated him at this point tells me that they believe he can be ready. Even if it's not week one, PUP players have to miss, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? They always change it.
Yeah, I don't know if it's changed, but it's usually they have to miss the first 6 games of the year.
6 games. So This tells me they believe he should be ready within the first month, whatever that is.
Yeah. I mean,
it is 4 weeks now, by the way. It changes 4 weeks.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good for him, I suppose. But there were reports and speculation out there that he might not be ready for week one because he needs that ramp up. But so that's why I think seeing him out there was a good sign today, even though he was limited and he only did basically the equivalent of a pregame warm up, warming up with his fellow offensive lineman. And it looks like he'll be right back in there as a starter when he's ready. But, other than that, he just did a quick warm up and then, he was basically limited for the rest of the day. So we'll see how much he participates in the game and, what we see at practice moving forward, even though there's not going to be much of that to indicate where he's at. But, yeah, he needs that ramp up, but it's good to know that he's back out there in uniform and doing at least warm-ups with a few weeks to go before the regular season. So it gives me hope that he'll be ready.
The other thing about it, the other side, so we're talking about Onwenu being back, and again, there's not a lot we can evaluate. I thought he moved around fine for what he was doing. is the other guard they don't have is Cole Strange, and he's still not back participating. He was out there today at the very end of practice, not in pads. I'm more worried about Cole Strange being ready for week 1 at this point than I am Mike Onwenu.
Yeah, I mean, it's a more recent injury, right? And like it honestly, it strikes me as like this is just speculation. I don't know anything.
Okay.
It strikes me as like a meniscus type of thing. So that's like a 4 to 6 week injury, right? So he's looking at, he's going to be in danger of missing week 1, I think. And like that's just echoing the Onwenu talk. Like he's going to need a ramp up when he's back out there too. And so, hopefully he's ready enough where they don't have to put him on PUP or IR or something like that to start the season where he has to miss the first month or whatever. Hopefully, he can just go be on the roster and be inactive for a game or two. Hopefully that's the worst case scenario for him. But yeah, I'm getting a little worried out there, especially after like the injury didn't seem terribly serious when it happened. And I figured he was right back out the next day, at least observing. He obviously hasn't practiced with the team at all, but yeah, it's getting a little concerning that he can't get back out there at all. And, the way that it's developed, it's not surprising that like Onwenu's coming off that offseason surgery. It's been months since that. And so he's back and ready to ramp it up. But yeah, Cole Strange looks like he might be in danger of missing time.
Going back to Onwenu for a second, though, and I agree with a lot of what you said there, but going back to Onwenu, I have a theory. I don't think I've given this take publicly yet, but I'll give it.
Oh boy!
I
see the newspaper clippings in the strings in the background.
If this take gets newspaper headlines, I'll be happy because it means we're talking about football intelligently. This is a very niche take.
Oh boy!
So we're kind of wondering now, like, where is Onwenu going to play? Is he going to play guard? Is he going to play tackle? And that conversation kind of changed when we saw them move Riley Reiff into guard. And right now it's Riley Reiff at right guard, City So at right tackle. But in City So he had another rough day today. He did, and he doesn't look ready. I wonder if them playing Riley Reiff at right guard still is a sign that Mike Onwenu is going to play right tackle. In City So at this point, essentially is the placeholder. And that's why we're not seeing other guys rotate in at right tackle. That's why we're not seeing Andrew Stuber. That's why we weren't seeing Connor McDermott before he got hurt, because they know, all right, Riley Reiff's going to be our right guard. Mike Onwenu is going to be our right tackle. And it's, all right, we may not have the whole line we want, but we can have as much continuity as possible. Like, if you're still moving Riley Reiff out to right tackle because he's your backup right tackle behind Mike Onwenu, in theory, right? Mm-hmm. Then when Onwenu comes back, you're making 2 changes. You're putting Onwenu at tackle and you're moving Riley Reiff to guard. Now when Onwenu comes back, you only have 1 change because you're leaving Riley Reiff at guard. I don't know. Little reading the tea leaves thing. Like you said, the string up on the corkboard there, Pepe Sylvia.
Charlie Day in the mailroom.
Exactly. I am kind of wondering if they are hinting to us that Mike Onwenu is going to be the right tackle whenever he's ready, whether it's week 1, week 2, whatever.
I personally still think he's going to be right guard when he comes back. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think I've ever really agreed with you on that one. I agree with you that, he should at least be considered a right tackle because he played pretty well there as a rookie. He was basically pretty much a revelation as a rookie. Like there was this 6th round pick out of Michigan that comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's a find and he's a legit starting offensive lineman for the team. And I know he played guard at Michigan, and he's since moved back to guard, and it seems like they insist on him as a guard, but you wonder if desperate times call for desperate measures, as the saying goes. And I know you're big on continuity and minimizing the amount of position changes. So yeah, it would be interesting to see. I'd like to see Onwenu try it at right tackle if they had to, because I agree with you 100% that City So is not ready to start week 1. He's a guy that played guard at college. This is a 5th round pick, right? And so he hasn't played tackle in a few years. He came into the draft considered to be a guard at the NFL level, and I'm just not sure he really has like the typical height and weight of a tackle. I know he's got he like barely has the arm length if you look up the measurables.
It's the arm length. It's size wise, and he actually has the athleticism for it too. So he's 6'5", 330. That's a tackle. That can be a certain kind of tackle.
You can be a tackle, but it's not ideal.
It's more the footwork. It's more the technique that's not there for me. And you saw it on that sack he gave up in the Green Bay game, right? When Kingsley Adebawore just put one hand on him, put one hand on his shoulder, and drove him back and just put him on skates. And his feet are flailing like Fred Flintstone. It's that kind of thing where, like, if you're going to play tackle at that size, a lot of guys do it. Trent Brown's Trent Brown's obviously bigger, but the example is when you play at that size, they talk about it as sitting down in the chair. It's the phrase Evan Lazar uses a lot, is when you're that big, can you get back, get set, drop your center of gravity, and basically make the other guy go through you? That's how you play tackle at that size, and he just isn't, his footwork isn't sturdy enough yet to hold up in that sense. And it can be taught. It can certainly be coached. And that's why I'm like, yeah, he might be a guy in a year or two that you can plug in, but they're still working on that.
Yeah, I mean, I like to assume that was their plan. I don't think they really wanted to put City So right out there in his first year. You know, Calvin Anderson's been on the non-football injury list for a while. Connor McDermott's been out for a while, and he got beat out but on the depth chart before he even got hurt. And so, like, yeah, they still have a bunch of injuries to worry about, tackle and guard. But yeah, no, it makes sense the way you explain it, that like he's getting beat on that first step. His first step is not good. He's got to work on that. So yeah, it is a technique thing that you could probably they can figure out. But like that was a guy that, look, I know he played tackle in college, and so I had hope that he would be able to play tackle at this level. But it's going to be something that's you're not going to be able to do that in 3 months. So ideally, someone can come back and and he can sit and develop. And so like in that sense, the best plan might be to put Mike Onwenu at right tackle. You know, that might be where you're correct. That like, I just don't think they're going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I agree with you that they should try it, but I just don't think they're going to do it unless it's like an emergency situation.
So it obviously just was my take that I think they're telegraphing it. It would be breaking the mold a little bit. They're so big on continuity is why I believe that, but I also will acknowledge I'm not going to sit here and say that it makes, a ton of sense based on their history. I will acknowledge it would be a bit of a departure, but that's kind of what the summer's been. Departures from the norm in a good way. And I think you can't rule out another one.
Right. Yeah.
I'm keeping that possibility.
And another thing is Adrian Clem, the new offensive line coach. Maybe like that was an idea that's been popping up in my head over the course of camp. Maybe he's a guy that likes to tinker. He likes to try different things. So maybe like continuity, not that he doesn't believe in continuity, but he likes to, just work out different combinations and find something that works. And as rather than like deciding on his 5 a week into camp and just sticking with it, like he's tried all these different combos, and obviously Riley Reef at right guard is a new one. So that's been interesting to me. So yeah, that could give you hope for Mike Onwenu being tried out right tackle if Adrian Clem believes that.
All right, a couple other attendance notes today. Pierre Strong no longer the red non-contact. Mike Gesicki still in the red non-contact. Ty Montgomery was involved in team drills first time since the second day of camp when he got hurt, although he wasn't a full participant. And then the other big news, 2 injuries late in practice. You saw it like really late, like in the last 5 minutes of practice, bang, bang.
Oh, yeah.
Really? Hunter Henry tweaked his ankle on a play, and then I didn't actually see it, but Christian Gonzalez, like I think it was a play or two later, tweaked his ankle. Henry looked like he was struggling with it a bit more. Neither one took part in the remainder of practice, but the remainder of practice here is like 3 or 4 plays. Henry didn't take part and then went right into the facility after practice formally ended. He didn't do the cool down. Christian Gonzalez was on the trainer's table, got taped up, got up off the table on his own. Trainer's not around, put his shoe on, walked over slowly. I didn't think there was a limp. I know Phil said there was a limp. Phil Perry. I'm not going to disagree with Phil.
Limp gate. It's a limp off.
Exactly. It's not the same stakes as when it happened last year with Mac Jones, but he's definitely walking slowly. I'd say he was walking gingerly. I wouldn't call it a limp, but like walked over to the team huddle on his own. So nothing super concerning, but also now it's something to watch. And again, these aren't open practices anymore. So we're just going to get an injury report. Limited. DNP.
I'm just waiting for someone to ask Bill for the update, and I'll give it the injury report later this week. That's going to happen. But Hunter Henry was the one that I saw like the full sequence, and he sort of fell awkwardly, slow to get up, but it just didn't look overly serious to me. And I know that a serious injury cannot look overly serious, so I don't want to, I don't want to speak out of turn on that sort of thing, but it just didn't look like too serious of an injury. But I guess that sort of probably greatly decreases the chances that we'll see either of them in the game, So,
yeah.
Gonzalez is the one that honestly, that worries me a lot, because like what depth do they really have at cornerback? And especially with Jonathan Jones is now hurt again. We still don't know what's going to happen with Jack Jones. And, if your first round pick it was already a little bit of a concern that they'd have to throw him out there week 1 starter. You're going to have the growing pains and all that stuff. So, I mean, if they don't have him, we're looking at like Jack Jones and Sean Wade, or Jack Jones and Marcus Jones, or Jack Jones, Miles Bryant. Like, the outside corner combinations are going to be pretty wonky if Gonzalez really has to miss time. So, I mean, that's definitely something to monitor anyway.
Along those lines, and the one word with Gonzalez, again, neither one looked serious. I don't know, but I got the feeling that regular season in doubt. If it's that kind of thing, usually the trainers are more involved. With Gonzalez, though, you don't want a guy like that where movement's such a big part of his game and his ability to cut in how fluidly he moves. Nagging ankle injury is going to impact that. On the outside corners, they're getting really creative. They're trying everything. We saw Miles Bryant on the boundary the last couple of days. I thought Marcus Jones had a really good day today, playing a lot on the boundary again. Here we are after an offseason. If they've got to get bigger at corner, here we are with maybe Marcus Jones and Miles Bryant as their boundary corners. And I don't think that's what it'll be week 1, but like that depth's really getting tested right now.
Yeah, not ideal, but I know you and I have disagreed with this on this in the past, but like I don't mind trying Marcus Jones at outside corner. I know he doesn't have the size, but he's a good football player, and he's obviously very explosive, and he can definitely keep up speed-wise with a speedy receiver. But you put him on the outside against a 6'2", 6'3", big play receiver that can go up and get the ball. You're sort of asking for trouble there. So. Yeah, I mean, if they have to go into the season with like Miles Bryant and Marcus Jones as their outside corners, I mean, that really is trouble. But, we're still 3 weeks away. So it was interesting to see the different mixes they use. And Sean Wade is still here. He sticks around. He's been sticking around like a freaking barnacle on the team. So it'll be interesting to see if they try to use him more just because he has that size. But, they're looking pretty thin and pretty small at that position right now.
I will tell you this, though, on Marcus Jones, your point about, like, you don't mind trying him on the boundary. In certain matchups, fine. Don't put him against 6'5" T. Higgins. Don't, he can't cover A.J. Brown. Week 1's a perfect example. He thinks like 6'3". Yeah, he can play on the boundary in some circumstances. He's not purely a slot corner, but there also needs to be an understanding that a 5'8" corner can't cover a 6'3" receiver on jump balls. Like, that's just, that I don't even think that's a philosophical thing. That's just physics.
Yeah. Here's another thing. Like, I don't believe they've actually tried this, but what if they put Jalen Mills back at outside corner? Sort of the same thing as on the offensive line. Like, you have an emergency situation. They played outside corner last year. He did a solid job, I thought. I know he's been playing. He's a safety this year, the way he's been used, and he's going to play over the middle a lot more. But I don't know if it's like an emergency. I wouldn't mind putting him back there and seeing what happens.
I would too. I just think it's going to be one of those things like we talked about with Onwenu earlier. Like, they were dead set on him being a guard last year, and they weren't coming off of that. I feel like Jalen Mills at safety is a thing this year.
Yep.
And that's just what it's going to be. So I would like to see them do that, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. One more note on practice today before we look at it's going to be kind of a double episode. I meant to say that at the beginning. We're going to do the look ahead today as well.
It's a double album.
Yeah.
To use your illusion of podcasts.
That is that AC/DC? I have no idea.
Oh my God. Guns N' Roses, baby.
Guns N' Roses. I should have figured that out.
I just saw him the other night. I got poured on.
You were there. Saw Slash.
Oh yeah.
Saw Axl.
Melted my face.
Members I know.
That's fair.
I do like Paradise City, though. There's like, to cross sports very quickly, when you're at the Garden for a Celtics game and there's like under a minute left and it's a play to decide the game, right? Call timeout, and then you're taking the floor with like 15, 20 seconds left, one shot, make or break. And Paradise City hits the opening riff of Paradise City. And it's like, it's calm, but it's not calm. There's like no song. It builds the anticipation of like the moment. Like, Paradise City's up there, and I love that they use it in the Garden. So
one of the great intros in rock. One of the great intros in rock history, Paradise City.
It works for me. I feel it. One more note on practice today. I thought Kendrick Bourne was really good. We'll do a player of the day, wrap things up. Might as well. Kept getting open deep, and good throws from Mac Jones, but I think some of them might have been sacks in a regular game. But that doesn't take away what Bourne did as a route runner. He's back. Kendrick Bourne's back, and I think he's going to be a big part of the offense this year. And thank goodness, because every day it's just more and more frustrating seeing what he's doing. And like, they really didn't think this guy was going to help him last year.
It's pretty unbelievable when you think about it. I guess this is sort of a developing opinion for me, but like, Kendrick Bourne has felt like Mac Jones's most trusted guy, most go-to guy going back to his rookie year. I think he was that guy in 2021. That huge 75-yard touchdown against the Cowboys, like that was a huge play at that time in that game. I know they didn't win the game, but that was like probably the most clutch play they made all season was that Mac Jones to Kendrick Bourne touchdown. And like honestly, like that playoff loss against the Bills, an absolute disaster. But I thought Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne were two of the only guys that like didn't get a thumbs down for that game. You could argue they were two of the only guys to show up. So it's great to hear. It's great to hear Kendrick Bourne say that he's happy, he's locked in, he feels good health wise. I guess he's done some sort of things to improve his physical health. I don't know what that entails, but yeah, like the fact to me, the big thing is that he's happy here and he he feels good about getting on the football field again. I don't think that was a feeling he had at many points he did last season. And yeah, it's starting to translate to the field, and that's the big part. Like he can go out there and say he's happy all he wants, but he's really been picking up steam and stacking days, as they like to say. So I mean, this is my thing. Like they're bought in, and if you have buy-in, like you don't necessarily need to be an all-pro like superstar receiver to be that go-to guy for your quarterback. You might need a great quarterback. Mac Jones might have to play lights out football. But, was Julian Edelman an all-pro? Was Julian Edelman, like a superstar wide receiver? He was a great player, but he was Tom Brady's go-to guy. I know Brady. I'm not comparing Tom Brady to Mac Jones or, vice versa.
You dare.
I'm not doing that. I'm just saying a guy like Rob Gronkowski, who is a superstar player, unstoppable on the field, and he comes up with big plays and big moments on the biggest stages. That is the rarest of the rare. There's so many superstar players who don't show up on the big stage. And then there's plenty of guys who you wouldn't look at as a star receiver, but then they elevate in the big game. So, like, I'm not ruling out that they have enough to elevate in those big situations. They have a lot to prove, but if Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne could show the chemistry that they've shown in recent weeks and they can sustain it over a full season, the offense is going to be better than people think, and Kendrick Bourne's going to have a really good year.
We'll see. We'll see. I think that's kind of where we're at this point with this wide receiver group. It's been a pleasant surprise so far this summer, but that's in practices. That's in 3 drives against the Packers. We'll see if they play Friday night, but let's see if it translates. That's kind of where I'm at this point. I'm willing to believe. I'm open to believing, but they got to give me a reason to believe.
Right. I am an eternal optimist. Maybe that's why I'm not cut out for the Sports Hub.
No, but like they haven't given us any reason to be like, oh, this is going to be bad.
Right.
I came into camp ready to be like, DeAndre Hopkins was there, and we haven't had that conversation a lot.
Yeah, really, but look,
we had it the first couple days when Tyquan Thornton was struggling, and then boom, here comes 2 rookies who look like they might be guys. So they haven't given us any reason to really, hit the alarm bells. I don't know, they've been amazing, but they haven't given us any reason to hit the alarm bells. We'll see if that continues in games.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly haven't been amazing or anything like that, but like this is the big thing to me, Barth, is that they're bought in. There's buy-in with Bill O'Brien and the new system, and I think that is the Bill O'Brien effect. I think this goes back to when the Texans were on Hard Knocks. You could see how he's personable with players, and he makes it. It's almost like he's the fun teacher. He's like your favorite teacher. Like he actually makes you want to learn and get better and all that stuff. And so he has all these guys bought in, and if that means that we come out of the season wondering if they have enough talent-wise, then that probably means they had a pretty good year and they were competitive in a lot of games. And I think a bought-in Patriots offense is going to be well-prepared and all that, and they're going to be competitive in most games. And so we'll see if they have enough talent-wise. I think it's fair to say that they might not, especially to compete against like the very top offenses in the league. But they're going to be better than last year. They're going to be way better than last year just because of the buy-in, I think.
All right, let's look ahead. Let's look ahead to Friday night preseason finale against the Titans. What's the biggest thing you're going to be watching for in this game?
Biggest thing. I don't know if this is the biggest thing. Well, I guess I'll start. Right tackle is still a big issue, and even with or without Mike Onwenu out there, like I think even if everyone's healthy, and even you got Mike Onwenu back at right guard, like you're always gonna have questions at right tackle because just the lack of investment and a bad summer for Riley Reif, and Connor McDermott hasn't really taken hold of that job like we thought he might be able to, considering who he was competing with. So that's a big thing to watch, especially if they stick with City So, and see if he's corrected those mistakes. So that's a big thing. But I'll give you. This is what I wanted to say at first. I don't know if it's like the biggest thing, but
yeah.
What are the tight ends going to look like? It seems like Hunter Henry's not going to play. Mike Gesicki doesn't seem like he's going to be able to play. So we're looking at Matt Sokol and Anthony Firkser if they have to put 2 tight ends on the field. And so that is becoming an interesting battle in camp. I don't know if they're going to carry 3 tight ends on the 53-man roster, but they're absolutely going to have one on the practice squad. Yeah. They're going to have one that they can elevate, and they might have to have one of those guys on the roster in week 1. So Matt Sokol, Anthony Firkser, those are definitely guys to watch.
This is really one of those battles, the third tight end, that it's going to come down to the game. It's going to come down to the final week of camp and what we saw this week. And I thought they both had a good week. Slight edge to Firkser right now, but it could be who does what in the game that earns the elevation. Now, they are also kind of situational, where Sokol's a better blocker, Firkser's a better receiver. So maybe that impacts it, especially if they're going to go with them both on the practice squad and elevate as needed. Like Sokol week 1 against that Eagles pass rush, a no-brainer. But that one's going to come right down to the game. I'm actually going to be looking at the defense. I want to see how the run defense looks. Wasn't good last week. Wasn't good against the Packers. I know they didn't have Juwan Bentley, but you saw Devon Godshaw getting moved. You saw Carl Davis getting moved. That has nothing to do with Juwan Bentley not being out there. They clearly felt they needed to address it. They signed Marquand McCall, tried to sign Marquand McCall this week. He's obviously not going to be here. He failed his physical, but
oops.
Yeah. And he would have helped. I want to see what the run defense looks like. Good test. This was a unit that was really good at defending the run last year, but they didn't look good last week. So I wanted to, and I said, like, I'm not freaking out. Oh no, they're not going to be able to defend the run all year, but it was noticeable. And
yeah,
so
I mean,
I want to see them kind of put that to bed.
Yeah, it was a disappointing performance, but because it was all the starters out there. Doesn't seem like Christian Barmore has made a lot of progress as a run stopper. He's a guy that you would hope would be able to play 3 downs, but he still feels like just a pass rusher, rotational, situational guy. He could make a big impact there, but just doesn't seem like he's going to make that against the run. Devon Godshaw, the guy they paid, they extended. He's supposed to be a guy, a rock in the middle, and like he got turned aside on a couple of plays. So disappointing game for him. And like, yeah, you wonder if they've been able to correct those mistakes. But again, like this is a unit that's been together for a couple of years, and like this hasn't been an issue like throughout the last 3 years, like every game. But if they can't stop the run, like that's not something that any defense wants. And like they've invested in the defensive line and defensive tackles, and they have all this depth. Why can't these guys figure it out? So like that's been frustrating, and I don't know if we're going to get much of an answer against the Titans. I don't know how many guys are going to play, but it would be nice to see them out there and see if they could, stop the run. If Derrick Henry plays, especially, he's still around, right? He's still there.
Yes.
So like if Derrick Henry plays, like that is quite the test for that group. So I mean, yeah, it would be nice to see them play and see if they've corrected those mistakes.
Again, that's going to be the biggest thing to watch for me. I think the tight ends are a good one to watch. I think the back end of that running back position, Ty Montgomery, Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, JJ Taylor. So we know it's Ramondre and Zeke are 1 and 2, right? So of those, they're probably going to keep 3 backs. They generally do keep 4, but I could see them being short this year. But you have 1 or 2 spots for Pierre Strong, Kevin Harris, JJ Taylor, Ty Montgomery. And I think that those are still undecided. And I think all 4 of those guys are going to play. Yeah,
and Taylor is making a good push here. He played really well against the Packers. I thought he showed pretty good burst. And I just wonder, like, Bill clearly likes him, and he talks about how he can do all these different things, but does he really have the size that you could put him out there and trust him against these huge NFL guys to actually execute at the level he needs? So, I mean, that's an interesting one, but, he might be able to stick, especially if Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris really aren't ready to take that next step. I'm not sure that they are. So we'll see what happens with them. So yeah, that's an interesting battle. Do you want me to give you one more guy that
I'm watching? One more guy. I got a couple more. But give me.
I'm watching specific receiver. Kayshon Boutte is a guy.
Yeah, all right, that was one of mine. Perfect.
All right, good. Because yeah, he's like I don't know if you could say he's had an up and down summer, but I feel like overall he's had a really good few weeks. And I know it was just really the one big play he made. Against the Packers. But I loved that play. It's been a while since we've seen a receiver even do that. Catch a quick pass over the middle and then just blow by guys. And it goes back to what I was saying. Like if you make backups look like backups, you might be better than a backup. There's a chance of that. And so Boutte didn't fall to the 6th round necessarily because of a lack of talent, right? And not to make too lofty of a comparison, Barth, but he looked kind of like another former LSU wide receiver on that touchdoand
I'll say this. Yeah, they have a type. LSU is a type of receiver. You go back, and they're like slightly different, but Jamar Chase, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, like it's a certain kind of guy, and Boutte's definitely cut from that mold. Will he kind of max out at that mold? I mean, that would be fantastic.
Right.
I don't know.
OBJ. Yeah, Beckham was the comparison I was making. But yeah, like what I've noticed, because I have been watching him closely ever since he started to really come on, and like one of the knocks on him, just based on reading scouting reports, is that he wasn't good at catching the ball away from his body. I feel like he's gotten better at that just based on his reps, and I feel like that touchdown was a good example of catching a ball a little bit away from your body and then making a play after the catch. And so he's been showing legit bursts, and like just because he's a 6th round pick doesn't mean he couldn't be a good player. And again, like it's not necessarily because of a lack of talent that he fell that far in the draft. And like it looks like the health problems are behind him and all that. And I know he ran a 4.540 at the combine. It seems like that was probably a little overinflated in terms of being too slow. I think
he said he had like a broken ankle. He ran on a busted ankle, which I don't know why he did that, but he did it.
Well, I guess that was better than not showing up, right? But
right.
Yeah, so no, he's a guy that I'm really watching closely because he pretty much by himself, but Demario Douglas too, but both the rookies, but Booty especially in recent weeks has made it a really interesting competition of receiver, and he's going to make for tough decisions for Bill Belichick if he can keep that up.
Yeah, so that's another guy I'm watching, and then another rookie, Malik Cunningham. We didn't get to really see him last week. Played quarterback, played receiver. Quarterbacks were 0 for 5 targeting him. I think he probably would have played quarterback had that game finished. Sort of made sense, but now we'll get to find out.
Did everybody
how big his role is?
Everybody take a drink. Barth said Malik Cunningham
at the 31-minute mark.
There we go.
So we'll see. Oh, and the kickers. So I had it in my roster projection 2.0 that they were going to keep 2 kickers, and it was kind of just like a talking point thing. Like, yeah, they might do this. I'm going to put it in, so I have to take out there, and I'm sure they'll disprove it next week, and I'll move on from it. Whatever. It was fun while it lasted. No, it feels real. Feels very real now. So we'll see what happens this week, but I'm not ruling it out. I wouldn't do it personally. I can't stress that enough. The personal attacks have been harsh.
You would do
Maybe it. Warranted, but harsh. I wouldn't do it. I think they are considering doing it. 2 kickers, so we'll watch for that as well.
If anyone would do it, it's Bill Belichick.
Obviously. Kept no kickers once.
Did he? When was that?
Yeah, 21. Because they kept Folk on the practice squad to start the year.
Oh, that's right.
They elevated him the first 2 weeks before they officially signed him to essentially buy a week.
Right, so technically they named 53 without a kicker. That was a good one.
53 had no kickers. Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, Chad Ryland had a bad day yesterday. I thought Nick Folk was solid today. So, I mean, that's going to be one to watch. And, I feel like Corliss Waitman has been sticking around at punter. I feel like you wonder if the rookies were going to blow by him at some point. But, Waitman's sticking around, and they're trying him in different roles. And so, yeah, I'm starting to believe in the possibility of the multiple kickers thing.
I can't rule it out. That's all I'm saying is you can't rule it out. Anything else from the game real quick, or is that pretty much it?
That's pretty much it.
All right. So that's a wrap on the training camp podcasts.
Did we even mention Mac Jones today?
No. I did very briefly. I said he got sacked a couple times.
There we go. I thought he was okay in the game. If we wanted to, touch on that real quick.
I thought he was good in the game last week. Yeah. I thought there were a lot of encouraging signs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We did talk about him earlier. I forgot we even talked about Mac Jones. But yeah, like the overthrow of Hunter Henry was something that, like, it's weird how like sometimes he drops absolute dimes and other times he overthrows guys. So it's like it's a little frustrating how inconsistent he can be with his accuracy. But I don't know. Hopefully he can hopefully they can sew that up by the start of the season.
So maybe Mac plays. Maybe we'll get to see some more Mac too, and where he's at with some of these receivers. But that will do it for the Sports Hub Training Camp podcast, the Sports Hub Patriots podcast. We'll continue. We'll be back. When are we going to do the next one? We might do a game reaction early next week. It depends on what happens with the roster. We will definitely have a show on Wednesday, I think, Dolloff, reacting to roster cuts. I think that for sure we'll lock that in.
We will react to roster cuts, and we're going to be on the radio on Labor Day. I know that's a little ways away.
On Monday, yeah. So a week from Monday, Labor Day. Is it 6 to 8, 8 to 10?
I believe it's 6 to 8. It's the official. It's the Patriots season preview show.
Yeah, the third annual Patriots season preview Labor Day show with Alex Barth and Matt Dolloff. So we'll have
tradition like no other.
We'll have plenty of coverage coming up. If you want to hear that show and you can't tune in that night, and obviously you want to hear all these podcasts, Patriots audio feed, wherever you get your podcast, Sports Hub Patriots audio feed. And of course, subscribe to the Patriots YouTube, not the Patriots. You can subscribe to the Patriots YouTube channel if you want. You can find me on there with Evan Lazar, Catch 22, but you should also subscribe to the Sports Hub YouTube channel.
Okay, if you're gonna promote Patriots.com, I'm gonna promote the Sports Hub Underground. That's my podcast.
Hang on,
I forgot to put my hat on. I don't know where my hat is.
Sports Hub Underground hat. It says Boston, but it looks like the logo. So
it's okay. I like my hair. It's fine.
No, absolutely.
I do the podcast at least once a week, sometimes twice a week with Ty Anderson, the Bruins legend, Ty Anderson.
Yes.
He's not. I know he's Mr. Bruin. He's the Bruins guy in Boston, in my opinion. But we talk about all kinds of stuff. He loves talking Patriots too, and we'll have some Patriots thoughts on that podcast, in the coming days. So check that out.
Yeah, everybody go check it. And that's it's just Sports Hub Underground is the podcast.
Sports Hub Underground. It's also on the Sports Hub website and app and wherever you get your podcast.
And we're going to get you guys on YouTube at some point.
Yes, we're going to do that at some. I'm waiting for.
I've been campaigning for that to the point where I think I'm starting to annoy you guys with it.
Oh, I'm waiting until we have a satisfactory episode. I talked about doing it, and then I thought our episode a couple weeks ago was absolutely awful. So I was like, we're not doing it yet.
Don't listen to the bad episodes. Only
skip that one.
Of Sports Hub Underground. All right. We'll wrap on that note. We'll talk to you again. If not after the game, certainly after roster cuts. Thanks everybody for tuning in and enjoy the game. Enjoy your weekend.
See ya.